It started as a simple road trip. I wasn't expecting anything more than gas stations, fast food, and maybe some bad radio. The plan was to drive cross-country, clear my head, and be alone for a while. The first 2 days were normal. Long stretches of highway, endless fields, dusty towns where time seemed to move slower. I had just crossed into a quiet, less populated area when I noticed how dark the road had become. No streetlights, barely any cars. My fuel gauge had dropped lower than I realized. I checked my phone. No signal. Just as I started to worry, I saw a glowing sign in the distance. Red Pine Motel, vacancy, nightly rates. It looked old, like something out of the 70s, but it was the only sign of life for miles. I pulled in. The parking lot was cracked and empty except for a single black pickup truck near the corner. The office lights were on. Inside, a bell sat on the counter. I tapped it once, and a moment later, a man emerged from the back room. He looked off, not threatening, just unsettling. His smile seemed forced, like it hadn't been used in years. His eyes lingered a bit too long when he looked at me. Still, I was exhausted, and the price was cheap. Room 6. The key had a dull brass tag on it, chipped and scratched like it had seen decades of use. The room smelled of bleach and damp wood. The wallpaper was peeling in the corners. There was a faint buzzing from the neon sign outside that seeped through the blinds. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to shake the uneasy feeling. It wasn't long after midnight when things started getting strange. At first, it was small. A tapping sound near the window. I figured it was a tree branch or maybe rain, but when I peeked out, the air was still and dry. No branches nearby. I closed the curtain tighter. Then the bathroom light flickered. A slow dim, then back to normal. It happened again, a bit longer this time. I assumed it was faulty wiring. Old place, old problems. But when I turned off the bathroom light manually, the moment I stepped back, it turned itself on. Now I was alert. I checked the locks, bolted the door, and even put a chair against the handle. My gut told me something was wrong, really wrong. Around 1:15 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not just walking, slow, dragging steps, like someone was limping or dragging something heavy. They stopped right outside my door. I held my breath. A long silence followed, then a soft knock. It wasn't polite. It was rhythmic. 1, 2, 3. Pause. 1, 2, 3. The same pattern repeated again. I stayed completely still. The knock didn't get louder. It didn't change. It just kept happening in that same slow, methodical rhythm. After nearly 5 minutes, it stopped. I waited another 10 before peeking through the peephole. Nothing. But the footsteps started again, moving away. I should have left then. I should have grabbed my bag, jumped in the car, and sped off into the dark. But something rooted me there. Curiosity? Fear? I don't know. At 2 a.m., the TV turned on by itself. The screen was black and white static. No sound, just flickering snow. I approached it slowly, heart pounding, and turned it off. The moment I did, the bathroom light turned back on. That's when I noticed the mirror. It was fogged up, as if someone had just taken a hot shower. I hadn't used the bathroom since I arrived. Slowly, I pushed open the door. The room was humid. The mirror completely misted over. But in the fog, something had been written. Don't stay after midnight. 3 words carved into the condensation with a finger. The hair on my arms stood up. My throat tightened. I grabbed my phone to call someone, anyone, but there was still no signal. I opened the bathroom door wider and checked the shower. The curtain was drawn. I pulled it back in one swift motion. Nothing. but the drain had water pooled around it, and a strand of long black hair floated lazily on the surface. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. At 3:33 a.m., the alarm clock blinked erratically, then went completely dark. The power cut out. Everything was silent. Then the knocking returned. But this time, it wasn't at the door. It came from the wall behind the bed. The headboard began to shake slightly. A low, dull thud. I moved to the far corner of the room and pressed myself against the dresser. The knocking grew louder, the thudding more violent. Then a voice. It wasn't clear. It was like someone whispering under their breath, just on the edge of hearing. I strained to make out the words. You stayed. You shouldn't have stayed. A shadow moved under the door, just the outline of feet. But they weren't facing toward the door. They were facing away, like someone standing guard or blocking me in. I grabbed my keys and slowly approached the door. The chair was still under the handle. I whispered out, "Who's there?" Silence. Then, "Checkout is forever." That voice wasn't human. It sounded distorted, like it came from a broken speaker. Layered, glitching, wrong. Suddenly the lights flickered back on. The clock blinked 3:34 a.m. The bathroom light turned off. The knocking stopped. The shadow vanished. I didn't wait. I grabbed my stuff, yanked the door open, and sprinted out. The hallway was darker than before. The walls seemed longer. I turned left toward the office. As I reached the lobby, the front desk was empty. The man from before was gone, but the bell was still there. I rang it once. No answer. I looked down. There were pictures on the wall behind the desk. Polaroids. Guests, smiling, holding up their room keys. Room numbers scrawled at the bottom. My eyes scanned the photos, and then I saw it. Room 6. The person in the photo was me, but it wasn't the me from earlier that night. It was me, pale, hollow-eyed, standing behind the window curtain with a hand pressed to the glass. Behind me, a dark figure loomed. I stared at the photo. My stomach twisted. This wasn't possible. I never posed for a picture. I ran to the front door. Locked. Deadbolt jammed. I pounded on the glass. Nothing. I turned to run back down the hallway, but something was wrong. The motel layout had changed. There were now 2 hallways branching out in opposite directions. Neither looked familiar. The wallpaper had changed. The lights dimmed to a sickly yellow. The doors had no numbers, just scratches and stains. My head spun. I took the hallway on the left. Door after door, all locked. I turned around. The entrance was gone. The hallway just stretched endlessly behind me, like I'd been swallowed whole. Suddenly, a door to my right creaked open slightly. Against every instinct in my body, I pushed it open. Inside was a room, not mine. It was older, much older, dust everywhere. On the bed sat a suitcase, covered in cobwebs. A rotten smell filled the air. I turned to leave, but something moved in the corner. A shadow, small, childlike, crawling. It whispered, "They never let us leave." I slammed the door shut and ran. For hours, maybe minutes, I ran through hallway after hallway. The motel became a maze. I heard whispers, cries, scratching. My own reflection started to lag behind when I passed mirrors. It would blink later than me. Smile when I didn't. Eventually, I found a staircase leading down. I took it, desperate for any change. It led to the basement, a cold concrete room lit by a single flickering bulb. In the center, a chair. Strapped to it, a body, or what used to be one. Its face was rotted, but in its hands was a photo. Me again. Same photo from the wall. A voice echoed from the shadows. "You're part of the motel now." The lights went out. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the room. Room 6. It was daylight. Everything looked normal. I rushed out, key in hand, ready to flee. My car was there, the lot empty again. The road beyond looked peaceful, like none of it had happened. I didn't even check out. I drove for miles without stopping. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, the motel sign was still behind me. No matter how far I drove, it remained. Glowing. Red Pine Motel. Vacancy. Nightly rates. That was a week ago, and I'm still trying to leave.